Despite the courts pronouncing that no child can be denied the right to education, many undocumented children continue to be excluded from attending schools across South Africa. And the burden of undocumented children is not only borne by the children of migrant parents.
Ngaphandle kwe-ID nje future yami ngibona ingekho nje ifana nento nje engakaze yaba khona. Ngifana nje nomuntu ukuthi uyaphila kodwa ngaphili.
When you are not giving them that chance to go to school, you are denying a doctor to go to a future doctor. You are denying the future president.
This month, while thousands of children returned to schools after a disruptive academic year in 2020, undocumented children born to South African and non-South African parents continue to be marginalized, partly because some officials break the law and violate their rights to education, leaving them to face bleak futures. Ten-year-old Anita Tunzini and her siblings Ntando, 8, and Zinhle, 6, are waiting with bated breath for tomorrow morning because it is the day that schools reopen. Anita and Ntando have missed out on 4 years and 2 years of primary school respectively because they do not have birth certificates, something that until recently was required to register a child at a public school. Their younger sister Zinhle, who is 6 years old, should be in grade 1 this year. Their parents are undocumented migrants. Because none of the 3 children have birth certificates, they do not qualify for citizenship. Until now, the local primary school in Gabalatsane, a northwest village, would not admit them. Last year, they were taught in this makeshift classroom by a concerned member of the community.
Good morning, teacher. Good morning, girls. How are you? Fine. I'm also fine.
While distributing food parcels in the community, Nozipho Zondi learnt about the children's plight from their mother. She offered to teach them free lessons to make up for their lost schooling and turned a room in a home into a classroom. This is their final unofficial homeschooling lesson before going to a public school.
She narrated her story, of which it was a painful one, that she has tried to go to the local schools to look for the place for the kids, only to find that they're not accepting the kids because herself, she's not documented. We're going to open our books on page 68. Time of day. Page 68,
The children's late grandparents migrated from Mozambique to South Africa in the 1980s. They remained undocumented, and as a result, their daughter, the children's mother, is undocumented. Her children are the third generation within their family to be undocumented, disqualifying them from obtaining birth certificates. Zondi believes that citizenship status should not deny children of immigrants the right to education, especially when they were born in South Africa.
When you are not giving them that chance to go to school, you are denying a doctor to go to a future doctor. You are denying the future president. One saying says, a child without education is like a bird without wings. Imagine leaving an illiterate children or generation behind coming after us. What world is it going to be?
In 2019, a turn of fate for undocumented children occurred when the Center for Child Law approached the Grahamstown High Court to challenge the Eastern Cape Department of Basic Education following the children's expulsion from schools due to their citizenship status. Last year, after the court declared its admission policy unconstitutional, the National Department made an about-turn and instructed all schools across the country to comply with the court ruling. With the circular in hand, Zondi went to the local school last year to inquire about the admission of the siblings.
They said they will take the children. But to my surprise, when the mother went to the school to fetch the books for the kids, she was told that no, the kids are not taken because they don't have documents.
But a few days later, after the school learned that special assignment was covering the plight of the children, they called the mother back to the school.
Hearing that media is involved, that's when they ran and called the mother to say, okay, now we're taking your kids. But also telling the mother that they will take the kids for 3 months.
But for now, this marks the end of years of painful longing for an education for Anita. The reopening of schools marks an exciting new chapter in their lives.
Time for school. We put on our white shirts.
The undocumented grandmother of the Tunzini siblings and parents of Tulisile Tunzini died in 1994 while their grandfather passed away in 2016. Their mother, who was born in South Africa in 1991, has, despite many attempts, not managed to get citizenship. Following a court battle to give permanent residence to children born to migrant parents in South Africa last year, the Department of Home Affairs gazetted the amendment of the South African Citizenship Act to allow stateless children born in South Africa to apply for permanent residence.
Ilang ngcine khona ke Home Affairs bangitshela ukuthi abazali bami ngoba beba ama foreigner, which means nami foreign, so angeke baze bangincede.
Even though her children have letters from the hospitals where they were born as well as vaccination cards, their mother says they had suffered the same fate as her. She considers herself lucky to have been allowed to attend school in Tembisa in the Gauteng province before she relocated to the northwest. But without an ID, she says she was forced to drop out of school.
Njengoba nami ngihlulekile ukufikelela amaphupho wami, bese ngibona iyenzeka kubantwana bami, bese ngibona i-history is repeater ebantwaneni bami. And leyo nto le bengenza ukuthi ngifile as if ngathi ngumzali oyifailure towards abantwana bami.
It is the morning rush on the day of the reopening of schools.
Njengoba ngigqokisa abantwana bami uniform kokuqala, ngifikelwa injabulo enkulu ngoba kukudala nginesifiso esifana nalesi.
She says she has been trying to get her children admitted to a school for 5 years, but not having birth certificates for them has prevented her from going any further. But as she prepares her children for the opening of schools, she's also embarking on a new journey.
Kukudala nginesifiso esifana nalesi. Kudala ngifisa nami ukuthi ngathi ngingake ngivuke ekseni nami ngifana nabanye abazali, ngilungisele abantwana bami bagcolisa uniform bahambe baye esikoleni.
As they take the first steps towards school, there is a glimmer of hope.
Namhlanje ngesikoleni ngijabulile. Lokho
Yini okujabulisa kakhulu namhlanje?
kuthi ngesikoleni ngifunda.
Yini okuexpectile? Ngicabanga ukuthi isikole yindawo enjani?
Akazi.
Abantwana bami bengibafisela ukuthi babe ne-future e-bright. Like bafunde, baphumelele, bathole imisebenzi, bakhona ukuphila lempilo bona abafisa ukuyiphila.
She laments the school granting her conditional admission for 3 months to sort out the children's documents, saying it is unrealistic given the decades-long wait she has endured.
After 3 months then genzekani? After 3 months bayenzani? Bayabacosha abantwana or genzekani?
We are at Nozipho Zondi's home. She's a children's rights activist in Itireleng in the northwest. While talking to her, 6-year-old Rindani Makalimela, his mother and uncle, pay her a visit. Zondi compiled a list of other children in the area who were refused admission at the local schools.
One parent came, and also she was from the very same school, whereby they are refusing to take kids. When she entered the office, she was told right inside the office that she can produce 250 to have the fake birth certificate.
A source who bought the fake birth certificate, which costs 250 rand, told Special Assignment that it is made using an original certificate, which is scanned into the computer and then edited on a Word document. Finally, it is printed on a paper similar to that used at Home Affairs. A giveaway on the fake certificate is that birth certificates have unique serial numbers. Also, the dates on the stamp and the issue date of the certificate do not correspond. Zondi alleges that parents have resorted to buying fraudulent birth certificates in order to get their children admitted to the school. Special Assignment confronted the school with the allegations. We arrived there at 10:30 and saw some parents waiting outside the school gate. Why are you sitting outside here, my sisters?
Because we are waiting we want the space for children. So they say you can come 12:30.
Okay.
So we are staying far, that's why we are waiting here.
How are you? We were also not allowed into the school. However, 3 school representatives came to meet us. They told us that the principal was in a meeting, but refused to introduce themselves. There are some allegations, Baba. Children are being turned away from the gate, especially those who don't have documents. They're just told to go back. This school doesn't take undocumented children.
All right. As I said, we cannot comment. You should see our circuit manager.
You also don't want to comment that the school is asking people to pay 250 rands so that they can get them fake birth certificates?
We cannot comment.
Elias Malindi, the spokesperson for the Northwest Department of Education, refuted the allegations of children being turned away as well as the school soliciting money for fake birth certificates. Our investigation took us to Katlehong in the Gauteng province. We met brothers Sizwe and Siabonga Molaba, 14 and 16 years old, at their home. They have been excluded from school because they don't have birth certificates. With them is a local human rights activist, Papi Papi.
Esikoleni angithi asikwazi ukuya. Ngoba i-certificate asinazo and high school bafuna zona.
Okay. The brothers started school late because they were undocumented. As a result, they are behind with their schooling. They want to register for grade 8. All they have as evidence of being in the country since their births are their vaccine immunization cards and school reports. Papi explains the different categories of undocumented children.
You've got grandmothers that are raising grandkids with no document at all. You've got kids that were born out of migration. A mother is a migrant, a father is a South African. And automatically, they will automatically be affected because they will be undocumented. Then you've got those South African-born kids with South African-born mothers with no documents at all.
According to the Births and Deaths Registration Act of South Africa of 1995, children born out of wedlock are registered under the surname of the mother or under the surname of the father with consent from the mother. The Molaba siblings say both their parents are South African. Their father has an ID, but their mother does not, which means that she is not recognized as a South African citizen and therefore cannot apply for birth certificates for her children.
It's very difficult to be undocumented in South Africa because you cannot go even. They talk about 350 now. You can't get that without documentation. To bypass the system, some of the parents, they even bribe the school administrators with 500 cents. Most of them, they have bought those birth certificates for 2,500. And they were being developed in an internet cave, not in Home Affairs, because they just take a birth certificate from somebody, original one, scan it, and then they edit it, and they give it to a parent.
From having given up hope, they are now preparing their school uniforms since Papi has assured them that he will help them find a school. The support of a concerned outsider makes them feel confident and hopeful about their futures. Fortunately, Papi's intervention has yielded positive results. The siblings started school on the 8th of March. But without an ID, they will not be allowed to graduate after matric. In Friede, in the Free State, 30-year-old Thabo Motaung, whose parents are South African, has lost hope of ever getting an ID. He says his father left him with his grandmother when he was only 9 months old and has never returned. Although he never struggled to go through school, the ID problem caught up with him when he wrote his matric in 2011.
Mangubhala umatric kwathi masekumele ngithole ama results wami bathi ngeke aze aphume ama results ngenxa yokuthi awana ID number.
His grandmother, Gogo Lahliwe Mhlabi, sustains the family through the state grant. Thabo survives by doing odd jobs.
So ukungabi ne-ID akungiphi nobuthongo ngoba ziningi izinto ezimile mangiya ngizicabanga kube kukhona engikhonile ukukwenza noma ngina something. Uma ngi-applyela imisebenzi into yokuqala ebayifunayo yi-ID. Ngoba if ungenayo i-ID basanokuthatha lo ozoba ngemva kwami kube nguye ongenayo asebenza. Even nabantu bayangifunela umsebenzi inkinga i-ID.
He says he has contemplated committing suicide.
Ngaphandle kwe-ID nje i-future yami ngibona ingekho nje ifana nento nje engakaze yaba khona. Ngifana nje nomuntu ukuthi uyaphila kodwa ngaphili. Ngoba lokho nje kuyangihlukumeza kakhulu.
He says he's been going to the local Home Affairs every year since 2005. Each time he's told to bring a maternal relative.
Uma ngibatshela ukuthi loyo muntu mina anginabo noma angibazi ukuthi ngizothi baba bathi akwazeka akekho umuntu wavela nje esihlahleni.
Uthabo akabazi abazali bakhe bamlahla kimi emncane ane 9 months akabazi ngamehla inyama abazali bakhe akamazi ubaba akamazi umamakhe.
Motaung's grandmother is sickly and worries about the future should anything happen to her.
Iyangihlukumeza mntanami. Lo mntwana uyanginceda lapha noma ngigula ebama bekho abantwana. Lo mntwana uyena ongiphekelayo, ongikopelayo, ungenzela yonke into la endlini. Ngithaba hodwa kwa yini?
Ki reportela ya ntho ya social work.
Motaung's case was taken up by the social workers who argued that his grandmother is his guardian, but this yielded no results. We referred his matter to the National Department of Home Affairs. They are yet to respond. The number of undocumented children in South Africa is difficult to assess because they are not on the Department of Home Affairs' database. Sheikh Amir from the African Diaspora Forum says the problem of stateless children is generational.
But very unfortunate due to the systematic failure, it can take you 2 decades or even 3 decades for your status in the country to be determined. The reality on the ground is that you cannot get actually easy documenting in South Africa unless you bribe your way or you are a friend to actually a corrupt interpreter or an informal actually broker within the Home Affairs. If you have money, you can bypass the system so easily, and you can even get, immediately a South African citizenship. And where you have no actually official to bribe, then you go to the streets of Hillbrow or elsewhere, where at least you can get a sort of documentation that will make you legal in the eyes of the law enforcement, but actually fraudulent in the eyes of the government.
Amero says despite the Department of Education's circular on undocumented children, they are still being turned away from schools.
There is institutionalized xenophobia in many of the schools where children are actually denied access to education. I have seen here in Mayfair migrants who have got even documented, and their parents are documented, but they were denied access to education because they said they do not recognize the type of actually papers they have.
The circular was issued about a year ago, yet the Department of Basic Education says it will take a while for its implementation to be fully realized.
It takes long for a certain message to set in for people to understand what it is that they need to do. It's a big system with 12 million learners and 25,000 schools with over 410,000 teachers. You need to communicate to each and every one of those people over a long period, repeat the message until they understand exactly what it is that they're supposed to do.
Nhlanga says the recently published Gazette on the admission policy for public schools comes a step closer to ensuring that the policy on undocumented learners is implemented.
The cooperation of the adults who are responsible for bringing those children to the world is very important. Tell us when that child was born and where that child was born. Don't leave a hospital without registering your child.
He says his department has a partnership with the Department of Home Affairs to document stateless learners. However, he warns that fake birth certificates will catch up with learners when they reach matric.
This insistence that you must have an ID document is really for your own good, that when you get to matric, what is Umalusi going to write on your certificate when they write ID numbers for other people? The university or employment, they will need that 13-digit number.
How does a state protect itself against a surplus influx of people while at the same time respecting their human rights? Access to education is a basic right enshrined both in our Constitution and within international conventions that South Africa has adopted. But when the values the country espouses do not translate into practice, hundreds of vulnerable people like Thabo Motaung and others, citizens and non-citizens alike, suffer.